We were going to keep the actual team very lean, and then we were just going to use lots of freelancers, but that basically doesn't really work.
Hello and welcome once again to this edition of Behind the Screens with me, David Hart, and my colleague Mark McDermott, and we're joined by our third co-founder, Luke Hubbard.
Hi.
Who's you don't normally see because Luke's based in Bangkok.
I'm a hermit.
And actually, that's the subject of today's podcast. We're talking about distributed teams and a little bit about the history of how the three of us first started doing it. Because actually, we did distributed teams before distributed teams was really a thing or really something that people were doing a lot. And when we first did it, I guess people thought we were a bit crazy or like, why are you doing that? But it's probably good to just sort of go back and tell you the history of what we've done and how we've evolved and how we've applied that to ScreenCloud. So I guess, going back, so the three of us, just to give you a bit of background, we used to work together at an agency in London, and we all kind of left independently and then decided to create a company together called Cogent, which we did in 2004. And then shortly after the three of us agreed that we would do that, Luke goes, I think I'm going to go move to Bangkok. Or maybe it wasn't quite like that. That's how I remember
brought it up before we agreed on the company formation thing. I remember sitting on the grass in Clapham and we discussed it and kind of laid out the plan.
Well, it was like, so me and David had sort of joined forces initially, and we were then basically, you were freelancing for us because basically we had one work that we couldn't do and we needed help. And so you were doing, there was like loads of jobs that were kind of coming your way, but obviously that was kind of overloading you. And I think you just said, well, look, I kind of actually don't really work for anyone else right now because I've got so much jobs from you guys and it seems to be working. Why don't we kind of join forces? Because clearly you need me, or someone like me, but right now me. But just so you know, I'm thinking of moving to Thailand. I think that's how I remember it. So it's like, if that's a problem, then maybe that won't work. But yeah. But I think all of us were like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, we had the north-south divide anyway, right?
Like
I was in North London. You guys were in South London.
It was like you were already a sort of a
you needed a passport to come to South London.
It didn't seem that big a difference to me.
No, it didn't really make any difference.
It's funny. I don't really remember us kind of really agonising over it or going, is that a good decision?
I mean, it was just like it was kind of like.
Yeah, okay.
It was like, do we want to carry on? And actually, if we carry on, it's a more formal. It just felt like, well, that makes sense because literally, because I think our original idea was we were going to keep the actual team very lean, and then we were just going to use lots of freelancers. But that basically doesn't really work. Like, when these ongoing projects and ongoing customers came on, it's like, well, actually, nah.
Yeah, and you have to keep coming back and doing more work, or
So it didn't. It was a nice idea at the time, made us feel better about overheads and things, but basically it
was really easy to price jobs. I just remember that. I just remember you just get, you'd have a day rate that you paid someone else and then you would just multiply it by a factor. But it kind of felt like the right thing to do. But it's weird. I don't remember us thinking, oh yeah, that's really odd that you're going to go to Asia. And I remember you saying something like, look, people are really, the education system in Thailand's really good. There's some great developers that we'll be able to get hold of. I think we can build
early chat rooms.
A team.
It was like online forums basically.
Yeah.
So, I was scouting for developers.
Yeah.
Before Google Translate. So.
Yeah. Wow.
It was all in Thai. I couldn't read a thing.
Wow.
I could find where people were writing about technical things, and it was obvious if the code was any good. And then because it was Flash-based stuff, they would post links to demos and things.
Yes, and actually, our very first employee is still with us today at ScreenCloud.
Yeah.
So
I found him online, and
in fact, he's sat
out
there just in London. Yeah, he's just over for a couple of weeks, but it's kind of.
So maybe I'll talk about like my reasons for moving. Basically, I was living in London, wasn't I? And I was working effectively remote for you guys or contracts, and I was just working at home in my pants.
Oversharing, man.
This is before Zoom.
You work in your bedroom, you get up, basically, it's a
we were
day.
communicating on MSN Messenger chat, which I don't think had a video or even a voice option. I think it literally was MSN Messenger chat.
Yeah, but as soon as we got the visa for my wife,
King Selassie and Code Boy Genius.
you remember the username? Jesus. So the idea to move to Thailand was mainly driven by the fact that it was kind of time to buy a house in London, and I didn't want to buy a house. I didn't want to get on that ladder, as it were. You know, I was paying rent. It was quite a lot of money. Most of the money was going on rent. And it was like, okay, well, Asia offers better opportunity. We can get better house. We can find developers. I can build a dev team. So basically,
and you knew Thailand from like you'd gone traveling there a lot when you were younger and stuff.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Asia, and I always actually wanted to be back in Thailand, but we needed to be here to get our our international freedom passes effectively, which is what the British passport became. So we got that done, and then we left.
Because I remember at the time when if we told anyone, oh yeah, we've got a dev team out in Bangkok, the immediate reaction was, oh, like, so you're outsourced, you've got a sort of outsourced, and we had to kind of always explain, no, it's it's actually our people, they just work for us.
Insourcing.
Luke's out there sort of managing it. He's one of the founders.
I mean, just to put a date, so this is 2004. I think we've already said the date. So back then, really the only way this worked was quite often people were basically outsourcing to India. That was the thing, wasn't it? Even Eastern Europe hadn't really come into its own. I mean, like most of Eastern Europe wasn't even in the EU at that point. So I think it really was like India, but it very much, you didn't really have your team in India, you outsourced to India. So I think a lot of people said, oh, it's like you've done it, but you've missed and you've landed in Thailand, which didn't have this kind of culture.
It's true. It didn't have a big tech outsourcing thing.
No.
But I think what Thailand does have is a very strong creative tradition. I think people are very creative. So if you look at the ad industry in Thailand, it's really good. Or just the creative industry is very strong. And we were sort of at the intersection of code and creative stuff. So I think for what we were doing back then, which was predominantly websites and Flash-based stuff, it worked quite well.
Yeah, I mean, we've had loads of fabulous people work with us, but like, I think Flash and animation and anything that involved, like creative thinking, that sort of subtle creative touch, like always flourished. The team in Thailand were always brilliant at that, and illustration as well, like some stunning illustration work that we've done. I mean, they really like it. It's almost like it came naturally. I'm guessing it doesn't, but it sort of comes in the culture.
It was more of a fit, shall I put it, rather than say banking websites generated out of PDFs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. That was probably where it was less of a good fit. Here's some brand guidelines. What? Can't I just add some? No, you can't. Not for them, unfortunately. But for others, yes.
How did you find it? Given that I know you can speak a bit of Thai, but really the language in the office was always English, wasn't it?
Predominant language.
Yeah, because I think if we had literally said, right, we're going to go and find a web shop in Bangkok and outsource to them, and we were dealing directly with a Thai person, I think
that would have been hard.
It would have been more challenging.
Yes,
but obviously, having said that, okay, we were dealing directly with you, but then I guess you had your own challenges around kind of how you culturally, you're a Westerner coming into a different country saying, hey, I'm going to build this.
Yeah. I don't know. I was fairly attuned to Asian culture in that sense of the way people work. You just get used to it after a little bit. But it did present challenges. It's like you shouldn't be super direct about things. You should kind of find a way of talking about something. You shouldn't call someone out in front of other people, kind of shame them in public, or all those. There's a bunch of things that are kind of sins, social sins, the things that you shouldn't do. That getting a point across, the value of that versus the reputational damage, or the kind of damage to the person's ego that it can do is a Western person wouldn't necessarily notice that right away. And I think the Thai team also adjusted over time to kind of be closer to Western culture, if that makes sense, or be like more accepting of the way Western people work.
I think the ones that I really remember from the beginning where it was problematic was just convincing people that it was okay to tell us if they were struggling on a project or that they were lost or confused, and they often kind of went down like their own rabbit holes for like quite sometimes in some cases quite considerably long periods of time, saying everything was fine and all good, and then as we approached towards the end, suddenly the house took on flames, and we were like, oh no, and then I think you had to jump in and rescue a lot of projects that way because I mean, I don't really know. It would be interesting to find out, like that. Even when you said, look, it's okay to not, for this thing not to be working. Like sometimes this is tough, They just only a few people really kind of got that. I think.
Yeah, there's a sense of panic sets in sometimes when you think, but to be honest, I'm not sure if that's just a Thai thing. I think that also happens in a lot of IT projects.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah.
The chance of stuff going wrong and then being someone who's basically under the
kind
cosh
of put their head in the sand.
Basically for those problems.
True.
I think
that
there's
is.
a degree of communication issue with a remote team in Thailand, and I think if we think back honestly over our history of that period, there was an early period where things worked quite well.
Yeah.
And then there was a period when we, as an organization, scaled up. And I think we were trying to push more parallel, larger projects through. And
exactly.
Things started not going as well. Maybe.
And also, I think it was the type of projects.
Yeah.
Because I was doing quite a lot of the management back then, like the actual practical management. And I think our sweet spot was when we were doing predominantly flash work, animation, illustration, those little games. We had loads of games for the BBC and stuff. And I mean, they were awesome at those. I mean, they were just, because the briefs weren't I'm no games developer. So I kind of come up with the broad thing, but actually conceptually I'd never come up with a game concept because I was useless at that. But kind of look, here's what we're trying to do. Here's the audience. And there was some amazing creativity and quirkiness.
Yeah. Do you remember that Jaffa Cakes game? That was
Jaffa Cakes game was amazing.
Cool.
That I loved that. It was so cool and so random. It was just, it was perfect for the brand. And then we managed to get that kind of, I think, through the way you did it, was getting dynamically driven Flash. That was also most of the Flash community. It was just standalone, but we worked out simple ways that we could dynamically drive data into Flash and not have to recompile it all the time, but could also show things. And I think that was when that was happening, there was a purring rhythm, and we were very profitable. Everyone was good, and then as that kind of work sort of started to ebb away. And it became more like these larger projects, as I suppose the agency was maturing into these bigger projects.
We did that thing with Teachers TV, didn't we, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
well.
That was a sort of even slightly different. But that was the retained team thing.
Yeah.
And that wasn't too bad, but that created pretty confusing everyone.
Yeah, but it was different kind of work. But
basically, we took on. For a client, we basically hired a team for them. And that created challenges, and not something I would repeat again, because basically I had one group of people who were we are part of the team, but we're kind of not, because someone else is giving us orders, and who do I go to with a HR issue, or just whatever,
it wasn't clear, because they were very much
team?
Directly using them, weren't they? They were directly managing them, but we were effectively responsible for HR. If anything went wrong, then we had to kind of sort it out.
Same as an outsourced team.
We were behaving like an outsourced team.
It wasn't really the right thing to do. I mean, it was during the kind of recession period, and so the regular income was obviously very much appreciated, or just prior to that, I think.
Yeah. Because it all got canned when we went into austerity.
The austerity killed it. But actually, that was the kind of making of it.
It forced us.
It kind of got to a crunch point, didn't it? Where we had, I think I had about 15 people in Bangkok at that point. We were in that house. It was pretty small, just a second floor, and a couple of small rooms. It wasn't. The work we were doing was websites, right? It was Ruby on Rails things, or maybe a bit of Python at that point. I'm not
quite
really
a lot
sure.
of CMS stuff,
more
corporate.
CMS-y, corporate-y stuff. And the team wasn't really excelling with that. The team had excelled more with the creative graphic stuff in the past. And then the decision was made basically to switch to product or shut it down, really, at that point. It was kind of we were where's this going? It was kind of I don't think we probably didn't put a bullet in his head at that point, but we were talking about where does this go?
I think we were sort of saying, can we become a mobile Can we be focused more on mobile technology?
Yeah, maybe that was the first thing.
In Thailand.
We had tried a couple of sort of little products on the side and stuff. Like FilePipes was our first one. But it only ever really became a product that we sold very, very successfully back to our customers. Yeah. But I think that gave us like an indication that. So FilePipes was a very early video and image recording and processing thing. So you could record video through your webcam and it would compile it, or you could upload it and it would encode it into the right codec. So this sounds like something that's standard now, but it wasn't in 2006, 2007.
An early version of
I mean, even YouTube was still relatively early back then, and like online video, it was complicated, and most of it was going through Flash, which is again where the Flash stuff was coming. But I remember when we were selling that product back in pitches, and we were doing some pretty creative stuff actually with it. We did some really good work for like youth music and things like that. I remember Build a Band. Was it Build a Band? Where basically we created a platform where young people, like kind of teenagers, I think, exclusively teenagers in small bands around the UK, could upload like videos of themselves performing, and then eventually the winner of this competition would get on stage at Glastonbury. It was like, I loved that, and we nailed it because we had this great technology which you basically completely pioneered, and then we were selling it in, and it just got that sense of when we go into a pitch with a product that's kind of unique, kind of special, and it's the right fit, is so much easier than when we just go into generic pitches like we'll build your website for a CMS, and that is where we were always. It was much more difficult for us, and I think it gave us inkling that there was something. That you've got to go in with something, and that's kind of, it sounds so obvious now because everyone builds product, right? But this wasn't obvious back then.
I guess the other thing as well, again, sort of mothering of necessity is the mothering of invention, but it was like, well, the team needs to retrain to do something that's kind of, and mobile apps was sort of the thing, reasonably recent. The iPhone had just come out. And
it was had been out for a while, but the App Store had only just opened up to third parties, hasn't it?
I think it would be a year or so previously. Yeah. So it wasn't too late on the whole apps thing, and actually the timing was relatively good. I kind of feel like if you jumped in really early, like you could have thrown a stone and succeeded in the App Store at that point. It was.
But we did phenomenally well. I mean, I guess partly because we were in quite early. Not all of them. But the very first one that the guys did, which was Learn Thai.
The one was Astrostar, the game.
Was it? Yeah. Okay. Well,
it was a good game, but didn't make any money. And as we realised that games on phones is tough.
I forgot about Astrostar. Yeah. But the Learn Thai phrasebook, which... suddenly started generating.
It's just an example project, really. The whole point of that was we sat down. I sat down with the guys. I'm like, okay, you're going to learn Android and you're going to learn iOS. Congrats. So we installed Xcode and working out how things work and so on. And we needed to build some simple application. And so database app is the easiest thing to build. And then I was like, well, we need content. Okay, well, we can speak English and Thai, so why don't we just recreate one of those, phrase books you find in an airport, but in a digital form? Pretty simple. And I think we recorded the audio on Apple EarPods. And we tried loads of things, tried loads of mics, but in the end, that was our go-to thing. And put it in the store.
Cum did it for the female voice, and Tay did it for the male voice.
Anyway, but it worked. It kind of, I remember when we put a paid version on, people started paying, and it was like 12 quid the first day, and then like 20 quid or something like that. And I was like, wow, okay,
this is pretty cool.
People are actually paying for this stuff.
I remember going away for Christmas and coming back. We had several apps at this point, but because I think it was the year that iPads were kind of given away at Christmas. They maybe just come out that year, and we came back after Christmas, and it was just like, wow, we'd made so much money, and we hadn't actually had to work for it. I mean, obviously we had, but it wasn't.
It's that making money where you sleep thing, isn't it?
So
it's nice.
Yeah. And it was predictable.
Yeah.
It was weirdly predictable.
Yeah.
Even though it's all individuals, like month on month, it was surprisingly, basically kept going up and up.
Yeah. The only frustrating thing is that we couldn't find a way to control it. Like we couldn't, we tried to do a bit of advertising. It just didn't. We couldn't really get it.
We were never
just
very good at advertising.
just relying effectively.
Yeah,
right.
I kind of feel like we did go for it. We did churn out more different languages and stuff like that. But I don't think we ever really went for it because it wasn't really what we were.
Because none of us are linguists. Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
passion
And
wasn't to try and teach people.
we stumbled into it.
Basic
stumbled
phrases.
into a few different things at that point in time. Like if I remember back then, we were working on language apps. We started working on kids apps. We were working on schedule. You were doing schedule app at that time.
Dash.
Probably Dash was happening as well, while all the other stuff was happening.
We were just doing everything that
yeah.
came into our head and building it.
There were just like there was Twit Booth, there was Webcam Snapper, there was
Oh, God,
there were
yeah,
tons of
yeah,
them,
yeah,
right?
yeah. There was so many.
I think it was, and the reason we did that is because we'd just come out of this agency world in which we were constantly building things, right? So
Yeah.
every month there was something new or something different. So why restrict yourself to one idea, right?
Exactly.
I think if we look back on it now, it would have been let's focus a smaller version of the team on a particular thing and just kind of drive that.
Well, basically
through
what we did with
more.
ScreenCloud.
Yeah. Well, basically what we did.
But I'm quite glad we didn't in many ways because I don't know about you, but I wasn't truly in love with any of those ideas. I was interested in all of them.
Yep.
I was curious. I mean, things like Webcam Snapper is a classic because we ended up with some random stuff like it went into Airbnb. It got used in quite a lot of porn sites. Basically, it's a webcam. Well, you can guess what it is. It's webcam
It was online
photos.
dating, not really porn.
No. Remember the Russian one? Remember the Russian guy?
I don't remember that.
It was actually a French guy working for a Russian webcam porn site, but he was based out of the Alps. He was a pretty cool guy. He basically spent half the day freelancing for these Russian pornographers, and then the other half day he was mountain biking in the Alps. He was really cool, and he was like,
he'd worked it
he
out.
paid up front. He was like, yeah, he was a cool guy, but yeah, some mad stuff with that. And then Airbnb, when they had their crisis, suddenly, Friday night, this email comes in from one of their now pretty senior lead developers, and like they needed to do identity verification, and webcams with a date stamp was the best way of doing it.
Yeah,
I mean,
we just sold them that software, didn't we?
a bit too
Not
cheap.
very much.
I think we actually said $10,000, and they were like, fine, and they wired the money straight away. It was like, what I meant was 100,000.
Yeah.
So basically, we partially
before
helped
we
save
understood about
Airbnb,
the value of
very
products.
partially.
I think that kind of taught us a lesson that if you do stuff and put it out there, if you build it, they will come, right? As
little
being a
bit.
fallacy. Right?
Yeah.
But it's not really. Like,
It's
if you
true.
build it and it's decent and you put it out there and you market it reasonably
people will
well,
come.
some people will come,
Yeah.
right? Not everything is going to be a runaway success.
No.
Right? But to achieve some level of success with most of the things you attempt to do is possible. It's not.
Yeah,
totally.
And I don't think it's, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's changed that dramatically.
No.
It's more about like seizing the opportunity of like there being a new platform or something new happening. Like if you come along and you're 5 years late into the App Store or something like that, then sure, build it, they won't come.
Yeah.
But like if you're relatively early on things or you can just see a little bit ahead, then you've got a chance of building something and you will find some degree of market. Whether the market is going to be large enough, whether the product is intellectually deep enough to sustain you going forward is another question. But yeah.
Okay, so
we were going to do
talking about
distributed
distributed
teams.
teams.
We've kind of gone into history.
Well, I think
a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
No, well, I actually think this is interesting. I mean, I recently was asked to give a talk. I didn't really have much of a brief, to be honest. It was by a friend of a friend. It was to like a business community, but I didn't like. All I said is like, there's 100 business owners in the room. I didn't know what type, what they wanted to hear. And I was given like a 45-minute slot, it's quite long, and I didn't have loads of time, and like I couldn't write a whole new 45-minute talk. So I basically boshed together two of our sort of standard ScreenCloudy ones about the problem and what we're trying to solve with communication. And then I thought, well, if that lands flat, why maybe if they're business owners and they're interested in tech, chances are they probably want to know about how you create and launch products, especially ones that seem to be doing really reasonably well. So I gave them a potted history of how ScreenCloud came about from the beginning, and they loved it. They loved this kind of thing, this sort of like these little nuggets of failure or learnings or insights that happened, and the fact that it happened like a decade ago, and it's only really kind of sort of filtering down into something big or potentially big now.
I do think ScreenCloud is a culmination of a lot of sort of successes and failures that we had over the years.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just in terms of, I don't know, almost everything. Like, for example, when we were raising funding and having experience of getting into a bad deal before on another company that we'd started, just not paying attention. It's just made us super kind of aware of what things to look out for and what things we were kind of worried about. But also, I suppose the other thing is actually going for it on ScreenCloud and having come to the realization that unless we properly went for it, it was always going to end up like all of the other projects that we did, which were quite good, but without that proper love. I do remember one time talking to Mark about this, and he was trying to convince me that we really did need to sell everything and just do the products, because I was still kind of like a little bit like, oh my god, that's our, that's the hand
I remember those conversations. Yeah.
And but he said, like, he said, just if you think about the things that we've done, he goes, imagine if the three of us were all we had to worry about was ScreenCloud. I'm not saying that that's not a big thing to worry about, but that's all that we were doing. Imagine how much sort of damage we could do in a positive way. But look at some of the things we've done that have been quite successful, and they've been kind of part-time. Imagine if all that we were doing day in, day out was just focusing on ScreenCloud. And actually, that's we tried it. I'm not saying that would work in every case, but I think if we hadn't maybe had those experiences before, we probably might have gone, well, let's just run ScreenCloud on the side and see how it goes.
Yeah, totally,
And maybe it'll eventually just magically take off and eclipse the agency, and then we won't even need to worry about the agency.
Also, there was experiments here. So, like, for example, one, like, what has really benefited us a lot is we have built a lot of product. Like, we have built and designed a lot of product.
Flexed that muscle quite a bit at that point. Like there were a lot of products we put out.
Exactly.
And for different reasons, but it was a learning thing for the team.
Exactly. We had a team who was experienced in doing this pretty quickly and to a high standard. And that's rare. Like, imagine going out and going, now I've got to find a dev team. We did not have this. We were a pretty well-polished dev team that knew their stuff, back-end, front-end, design. And then, with, say, things like Twilert, we'd kind of had a little bit of experience with SaaS and kind of what people were willing to do and scaling it. Back then, me, and then eventually Noor, and we did customer support. And we found out that actually doing really, really good customer support would make a big difference in customers paying more and how appreciative they were compared to be honest, some of our agency customers. Even when we would work all weekends or all night, we'd barely get a thank you on support. Just getting back to them within an hour and giving them a copy of their invoice that they wanted or whatever would come back with, amazing, you guys are so cool. I mean, because I guess the expectations were completely different, whereas you could literally, almost kill yourself working, and then they'd be like, management have decided on a new path. Okay. And you're like, wow.
Brutal.
Cheers, guys.
There's another tiny cut for the toward the dev total.
Actually, there is. I was talking to someone at the weekend who's a non-tech founder, and he's been using an agency to build his product, and he's like, "Do you think it's time for me to bring it in house?" And I was like, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, but the problem that you have is if you just literally go out and try and hire a team, is you don't know what you're hiring. You don't know. You won't find out until 6 months down the line when it doesn't work that your team's useless.
Also, the founding team doesn't have a technical vision.
Yeah,
and that's as important as the customer vision, if you like.
Yeah, and it just made me think, those sorts of things are just took for granted. It's like there's the three of us, we've got everything, all the kind of basics covered, if you like.
Our weakness was really go to market. Like, we were good at being discovered. Like, so the early adopter discovery phase, kind of SEOing and having an attractive prospect that would get people interested. We were strong on that. But like, really anything more tactical sales wise, like we'd never really sold, did we? Because we basically always hid behind just the web page. The web page sold it, or the in-app purchase sold it.
Yeah.
I remember when I don't think I'd have, apart from pitching, obviously, for agency, but that's a very different type of sale, but increasingly becoming more like our sales now. But at the very beginning, I hadn't really ever done a demo before. I suppose I'd done demos to customers, but
demo a CMS or something. It's not quite the same.
Interesting question is, if we were to go back and do it again, knowing, with hindsight, what we know now, what would that transition have looked like, and how would we have done it differently?
I still think, because of our lizard brain, which we both have, or maybe all of us have a bit, like I've definitely got it, I'm pretty sure you do too. I imagine that it would have always started with a random array of products, just solving different problems. But that sort of startup studio, which has been successful, like eFounders, they've created some pretty decent sized companies out of their model. My number one regret is we should have killed agency earlier, and we should have doubled down. Like, we were good at this. We are good at this.
We just didn't have the full confidence in our ability
to.
And also, I feel we probably did too many things in parallel at that point.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was the other thing.
We were juggling different products and talking about, should we kill this one or that one, or we basically created a ton of different things going on.
If you think about it, like, we spent our lives were constantly juggling multiple projects with multiple clients, and also there's probably a lack of confidence in terms of not believing in ourselves. I mean, you two, this is more me. I was always like, we built up a bit of a kind of nest egg, and there was always that kind of fear of, like, we could blow the lot on some kind of fantasy project that's never going to come to anything. So with hindsight, obviously, if you could have known what was going to happen, you'd have ripped the plan.
We did have fail.
Band-Aid.
I mean, there was Dash was a pretty big fail in there.
We bit
put
off
a
too
lot of
much
money.
but
the thing with that is it was almost stillborn, because the moment I kind of came to test it with customers at the end, actually getting people on it, I realized that it was those customers going to want so much more other things that product wasn't providing. It was natural they wanted those things, and it wasn't really obvious to them exactly what it provided. And also, by that point, so much work had been pushed into that project, so much blood, sweat, and tears, that I was burned out on it, and I didn't want to see it flourish. Does that make sense? You get to a certain point, it's like you still see that you get to the top of the mountain, there's still another mountain ahead, and you just don't have the energy for that next bit. But so that was
a big learning.
That was a hurt. And then I think there was another project that was like fundamental to us back then, that to the confidence was Flow. Because Flow was built. Flow was a reaction to us.
So we should probably just quickly explain what Flow is.
Yeah. Okay. So Flow was an iPad app for Instagram, because they didn't have an iPad app, and
still don't, I don't think.
Yeah, and actually was born out of wanting to build an online shopping app for Instagram apps in Thailand, because I realized that there was this economy going on, and I wanted to be on
social shopping, kind of ahead of the time. I mean, what year we're talking, like 2013?
There was definitely something going on there. There was just
early.
It wasn't obvious how to monetize it from thing, but I still wanted to build a really nice experience around it. But the real drive behind Flow was that we'd been successful with mobile apps and all these language apps and kids apps and so on. And I kind of felt like there we weren't necessarily excelling with the product. We were providing the product people wanted. There was product market fit for sure, and it was profitable, and there were millions and millions of downloads and people using it. Yeah. But it wasn't like the cream of the crop. It wasn't the best we could do. It wasn't the stuff we'd done in the past. Some of the the advanced stuff we'd done in Flash was at that sort of level. You feel like, okay, now we're doing something that hasn't been done before in the world. And so Flow was our attempt as a product team to kind of prove that we can be on that level, right? And I think it kind of proved it. It got featured by Apple. It was on the front page of the App Store. We got good feedback from Instagram.
Even from Instagram themselves.
Yeah, eventually they killed it. But that didn't really matter. And money-wise, it made like 20 grand or something like that over its lifetime. Maybe a bit more.
Making about $3 a month or something.
Yeah, something like that. It was making money. And there were hundreds of thousands of users using it. But relative to the language apps, which was millions, it wasn't that massive. But it was still. Yeah. But it still felt like a success. It felt like we'd set out to do something, and we'd launched it into the market. We'd got press for it. We got good reviews everywhere it was out. And it was just this kind of validation of, okay, as a team, we've still got this. And then after that was kind of when we got into ScreenCloud.
Yeah.
So in a way, ScreenCloud was kind of born off the back of Flow in a weird...
Because you wanted to push like these bigger images up.
I wanted to put
screen.
it in shop windows and stuff like that, yeah.
And that's where I'd also came across the Chromecast. And that was, for me, the Chromecast was like a light bulb moment in my life, because Netflix and stuff was beginning to kind of become a thing. And at home, me and my girlfriend at the time were like, she was really into Netflix and stuff before I was. But it was watching it on her like crap PC with like shitty speakers, and it really wound me up. Like I was like, we're watching great stuff, but we've got this great big TV over here, and we've got this awful thing. And I was just like, oh, this annoys me, the tinny sound. And anyway, and then the Chromecast, but I thought, well, there's ways we can hook it up. But she was always like, no, it's just too much hassle. Don't just put up with the crap sound. I was like, me. I want a good sound. I want to see a big picture. Yeah. It's like it's not really the money; it's just the experience. This was bad.
Yeah. But it's slightly annoying, isn't it? I've got this great sound bar and this really nice TV, and I can't really use it.
Yeah,
other than to watch terrestrial.
Yeah, and so I got the Chromecast and I plugged it in at home, and then I just said, look, all you got to do now in the browser is push that button, and it will go up on the screen. And she was like, oh my god! And then literally overnight, her complete behaviour about this changed, and. Yeah, I'm not saying. I mean, I don't know if she comes off weirdly on that. Basically, she has a valid point. Like, why would you want to be fucking around with wires for like 2 minutes when you could just watch the thing? But just tipping that button, and then you could never get her back. Like, she would never then watch it on the laptop again. Because why would you do it? Now you've got what you wanted. Tip a button. I was like, this is how the world is going to change. Because if you can do this at home for $30, one click of a button, anyone can install it, and then you go to work. And you're mucking around in the meeting room trying to do things. We've got these blank screens on the wall running loops on USB sticks. And you think, but I can solve this at home. And so for me, it was this hardware revolution of that. And actually, Chromecast was a bit of a, what do they call it? A kind of a false
prophet? Yeah,
because the way it works, it isn't actually really good for digital signage. There's loads of reasons why. They weren't evident at the time. But the Amazon Fire Stick, which came, was like the perfect.
Yeah, we didn't know about that.
We didn't know. I don't think it existed. No. That was lucky. But the Chromecast was the thing that, for me, opened the door.
Essentially, like a lot of entrepreneurs fail early, but they often fail. So sometimes there's a bit of a badge of honor, isn't there? Like, oh, I failed at this and I failed at this. And actually, for our investors, it sort of, I guess in a strange way, all the failings we did on our dime. So we funded all of those failures.
Yep.
And the one that, I'm not saying that they're all failures. Actually, that I wouldn't class most of those as failures. They haven't done what ScreenCloud's done, but they definitely weren't failures. I mean, they were definitely profitable.
For people. And to be honest, in some cases, I think in some of the worst years of, say, recession or austerity, products saved our company.
Yeah.
Without the income from those products, like, I think we would have folded.
But the learnings we had from it were learning, about how we could have scaled it more, or how something wasn't get dash. We hadn't really validated it with customers before we went to all those kind of learnings that we had. We did on our own dime, which meant that when it came to ScreenCloud and we went out and got investment, to an extent, I mean, we're still a part of the journey. But like we wouldn't have done ScreenCloud had it not been for the things that we'd done previously. And actually, we were trying to do that when we were pitching for the money. We were like, hey, look, we've worked together for a long time. We've done all these products.
If I was an angel, I would totally, that type of team would massively appeal to me.
Yeah.
I must admit, it didn't resonate with everyone, like that thing.
I just find it really weird how VCs usually not that interested in the team or their actual ability to execute.
I know,
like
that's the only thing you should
show us your number projections. I want to see the information about your market, all the rest of it. Well, it's actually
insane.
How good are we actually at building stuff, because this is the muscle that you need, right? Like frankly, and it doesn't really, like, I suppose we're going to get into the discussion about different kind of teams. Was it a generous thing on this one or the next one?
We'll do it on the next one.
Okay. I won't launch into that, but like
coming soon.
So just getting back to distributed, I think when we were working on those products, whether it was Flow or other things, because we had a bit of money coming in from a language app, so from the other apps that were making money, it bought us a bit of freedom or space to go ahead and kind of focus on things. Yeah. And I think for us as a team in Bangkok, that's what worked well, where we were given a bit of space to work on something. That's when
a client brief never gives you.
No,
especially when the client brief then keeps changing. And
you need the freedom to change it yourself, right? To sit down at some point and go, this is not working, this needs to change like this, or we should do this, or just that freedom to kind of explore.
Flow was an excellent product. That was a world-class product.
Yeah, it was, and even like visually, I think. In some ways, we haven't got back there yet, but we can.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Because
it's funny because we launched it when we went into ScreenCloud. It's going to get onto the generous thing, but as a team, we have to push people into different areas, things that they didn't necessarily do before. So it's whether it's Android apps or some of the iOS stuff, or actually with with the start of ScreenCloud, we pushed into web apps, right? Because we had
Yeah.
to build a SaaS app and APIs and back-end stuff. So there was a lot of that we had to build. That was away from the kind of the polished front end. It was quite a different journey to what we were doing with apps prior.
I think we probably need to kind of wrap up on that one. I think we've gone.
Yeah.
What
I
are we
don't know
doing
what
time?
we've
Kind of gone slightly off topic.
We've
But
gone
we
way-
talked
yeah,
a little
that's
bit
fine.
about like the genesis of ScreenCloud and the product stuff.
I don't know. Maybe it's just memory lane. I don't know if people find that interesting, but I think it is. I think so. I listen to loads of podcasts. I know you guys do as well.
Yeah.
I love backstory. Like of almost, I don't really care what the backstory is.
It's that kind of overnight success myth that you kind of think.
Ah, yes.
When you hear about it, you go, "Oh wow, okay, so you had to do all that to get
like
to that." Yeah.
no one who's really done like genuinely well and really built a good product and a good company. Like really, very few have ever just turned up out of college and off you go. Like I suppose it's happened, but even then, I bet it gets retold through PR lens. And I think like the real human stories of all of these things, I just think it's definitely interesting, and people want to do this. I think they should learn that sometimes you have to do it for 15 years before you get to start. Like, you know, it's like marathon training, right? You know, like the race is the race, but it's the miles in your legs before which are going to determine whether that race is going to work or not. You know, that's. But everyone will just focus on the race.
Yeah.
What was your time? It's like, actually, my time was the last 4 months getting up, trotting out with massively sore legs. That was the time.
Yeah, getting all those blisters.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, until next time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cheers.